Bison Media Zone on WDAY Extra.
All right, and welcome everybody to the Bison Media Zone on WDAY Extra from our Hot Mic studios today. We've got a busy show on tap, including special guest NDSU defensive coordinator Grant Olson will join us here in just a couple of minutes. The Bison opened up spring football yesterday, the first of 15 practices inside the Nodak Insurance Football Complex, the first for Tim Polasek as head football coach, and a really intriguing next month is on tap for Bison football with the amount of changes that have undergone with the personnel, with the amount of changes on the staff, 4 new members of the staff, couple of new changes for assistant coaches as well, that this sets up for what should be the most intriguing spring football we've had probably in the last 10 years, I'd say, just with the amount of changes that are there. There is some familiarity with the players, certainly, the amount of guys that are returning, but there are some spots. We highlighted this earlier in the week, and certainly you can check that out at inforum.com on my spring football preview, that the amount of positions that are up for grabs will make it awfully interesting, not only for the spring, but certainly into fall camp on who's going to take what spot, starting on offensive line. And this is something we won't get into much with Grant because he's worried about the defensive side of the ball. But Polasek brought it up yesterday in his first availability with the media, is that we got to figure out who's going to be playing where. I don't think anything is set in stone. Certainly hearing that from Polasek's mouth yesterday is that you've got openings there at center. You've got an opening at right tackle. You've got an opening at left guard. Those are just to name it off the top of your head. And you don't know where you're going to put Gray Zabel or Mason Miller back for this season. Those are the 2 returners on the offensive line. So there's, right off the hop, you've got some questions to try and answer for the Bison football team there. You've got some stability, you certainly know, at the skill positions. Wide receiver, you know what you have back there. Raja Nelson is your utility knife, and you've got Eli Green back. At tight end, Joe Stuffle is back for another season. So you've got some familiarity and stability in that position. Then you look running back-wise, TK Marshall, Barika Penu back. You've got some new blood there, and Marty Brown, the young man, redshirt freshman out of Omaha that they have really high hopes for. And then, notwithstanding, obviously, what is back at quarterback, with Cam Miller back for his 5th season, Cole Payton in his 4th season. That is a tremendous amount of experience that cannot be underestimated there of what they have back there. Now on defense, and we're getting into this with Grant here in just a few minutes, because that's the intriguing part to me, that you have some openings on defensive line. You've got maybe some movement at the linebacker spot. On the back end, you lost Jaden Price there, so you've got some youth at corner. At safety, you certainly have Cole Wisniewski back, guy who had about 83 interceptions last season. Sam Young back after he had a really nice end to his season. There is more experience back, but maybe some questions there. And the guy who can answer all of our questions joins us here this morning. NDSU defensive coordinator Grant Olson joins us, the pride of Wayzata High School. By the way, your alma mater is playing in the state basketball tournament right now. I don't know if what were your basketball skills in high school?
My specific basketball skills, well, I didn't play in high school. I played growing up. I wrestled in high school. But I was rebounding and defense. For those that remember Ben Wallace.
Yes.
I was a short Ben Wallace, if you want to know.
He's a tough guy, though. There's no doubt about that. Toughness and
That's
you
true.
go hand in hand, so we know all about that. By the way, is this new office? Is this the defensive coordinator office we're looking at now?
It is.
Here we are.
It's the exact same setup, except the room is flip-flop. So the computer's on the other end, and then my window gets the sun right now. So I got to figuring that out as we go.
There you go. All right. Well, how was day 1 yesterday? How'd it go?
Honestly, I thought day 1 went really well. And I'm going to give some credit here to Coach Polasek. Part of our some of the changes that we want to make, there's not a lot of big changes. People need to think like, hey, I'm going to see the exact same Bison defense that I know and love. But what they're going to see, or I should say, as far as how we progress and build, it was really interesting. I know he's like, hey, Grant, I'd really like to install our schemes in a certain order that, yes, the offense may be able to take advantage of what you're doing because they know what you're in, but that's not what spring ball is about. That's not even what fall camp is about. It's not about offense versus defense. It's about development and young guys getting better. One guy I'm gonna shout out, Austin Altapeter, had hands down his best practice he's ever had, linebacker for Moorhead. Like, that was so encouraging. And I can give you probably 7, 8 other young guys that had their best practices they've ever had either in their 2 or 3 years at NDSU.
Okay.
So anyway, I'm extremely excited about it. And I want to give Coach Polisek credit because his motivation, I think, was the reason that we decided to change the order of how we put things in. And it's already helped our young guys out tremendously. So we're moving the program forward right now.
So for you personally, was it different yesterday for being, were you in different positions? Were you talking more? Was it different for you yesterday?
A little bit, yeah, definitely. I think that, previously it was like, okay, be the master of these 12 individuals and coach them. And when you get an opportunity in special teams, coach everybody else. But now all of a sudden you're thinking of things from a little bit more of a holistic perspective and wanting to be encouraging to everybody and make sure that everybody's on the same page. So yes, definitely a little bit different, but at the same time, one of the beauties was like to be able to go back to your individual period for 20 minutes and just focus on the linebackers. So to be able to take that time and just was also really good for me. And as I'm continuing to learn and grow, I'm really leaning on all the other defensive coaches and thankful for them and their experience. And Coach Polisek's honestly been a big help to be able to go and ask him some questions. So it's been really good, and I'm thankful to have a good staff.
All right, so I got to start here with some guys that you and I have talked about both on and off air, and now we're into spring ball, and this is always the time for maybe some young guys to step up. One is a guy that you've talked about quite a bit, is Nathaniel Staling from Brainerd, who played a bit last year, got some special teams run. Are we going to see more of him in that middle linebacker spot in 2024?
You're going to see Nathaniel out on the field right now. The difficulty that we have, and I had it a couple years ago with the will linebacker position when we had James Kaiser, Cole Wisniewski, and Logan Kopp all playing the same position. Yeah. Now we've got Nick Kubis, Luke Wirtz, and Nathaniel, and they're all really good players. But I can promise you, like, I don't think I'll ever have another set of 3 Mike linebackers that are that talented that I really believe we can beat about anybody in the country playing. I think every team in the country would love to have the problem we currently have of so much talent, and everybody wants to play and gets to play. And I'm going to have to be really creative on when we get these guys on the field and how we get them on the field. So that's going to be a big challenge. But yes, he's a fantastic football player.
What stood out to you from how he played last year and taking Staling, I'm talking about, to take the next step here this fall?
Yeah, right now the biggest thing is just knowledge and confidence when you're out there. And it's not an ability thing, but right now, like, he took a huge jump and he had his best practice that he's ever had. But like, I didn't have to go to him after every play and say, hey, do you remember what you're doing here and where you're aligning? Like, he got lined up on his own every single play. He had every single correct fit. His pass drops were really good. He had no MAs. So he's taken that next step mentally. And now the immense talent that he has is going to showcase itself because he's not asking questions and he's not playing slow.
You can have the all-time great humble brag that you told me Logan Kopp is going to be an all-conference player. That happened last year. So what's the encore? What can he do in 2024?
Good question. I think I know there's a couple areas that Logan can definitely improve. But he's a playmaker for us, and we're going to keep him in that spot, and we're going to keep him on the field and keep putting him in positions to make some plays. There's a couple areas that I know I'm going to challenge him on. Number one, I'm going to challenge him on his coverage ability, his man coverage ability. I think that he can improve there. And then I think he's a very good tackler, but he's going to become a great tackler this year. I really want to see not only him, but everybody, but specifically Logan. Like, I don't have the exact number right off the top of my head, but let's just say in the 15 games we played, let's say he had somewhere around 20 to 25 missed tackles. That's 1 or 1.5 a game, whatever that number ends up being. It's like, okay, Logan, let's get that number to 0.3 average missed tackles per game. You miss a tackle once every 3 games. And if he can become a dominant tackler like that, then I think then the next step to All-American and all those things. And at the end of the day, I'll be the first to admit, too, that like some of those awards are really nice. At the end of the day, I don't care about those. I want to win football games. And I appreciate that a lot of our guys feel the same way.
Tell me, for fans that are going to go and watch the spring game, Grant, at the end of April, in that linebacker room, who you really keep that maybe hasn't played a whole lot, that can a big month maybe on tap for that guy.
Yeah. Oh, easy. I'm going to give you two local guys, actually. And I already mentioned Austin Altapier.
Yep.
He would be the third that I would mention. But the two other guys I'm going to give you that you don't know the names of right now, or maybe not every fan, is Marcus Gully. Marcus is from West Fargo. He was a Packer, was at Moorhead, transferred after 3 years. So he's got 1 year left. Marcus is in the same spot right now that I think Braden Thomas was in.
Okay.
Where he transferred, had a good year, and was able to play, but it's just like there's a lot to the NDSU defense, and I think a lot of people don't understand sometimes how much there can be schematically to the game of football, and sometimes that's on us as coaches. We need to simplify things a little bit, but now that he's comfortable in the defense, his talent is going to flourish. So Marcus Gully, you're going to see him out there. You're going to see him making plays. So if you come to the spring game, be looking for number 26. He's going to be out there making plays. And then the other guy that's already looked really good coming back off an ankle injury is Enoch Sibomana. And Enoch's from Fargo South. He was a Bruin. And unfortunately, last year, just in a freak injury during fall camp, he landed wrong, completely broke his ankle. His foot's looking that way. And on film, I saw the guy. He grabs his ankle and pops it back into place. It was the most amazing thing you'd ever seen on film.
Right.
And I got the Dom, come up sometime. I'll show it to you.
Oh, I don't think I want to see that, man. Okay.
But I mean, just tough. I mean, tough as nails kid that now, like, he's healthy. He's just going to be out there. You're going to see him and you're going to feel him. And I'm really excited for those young men.
All right, there's two guys there to write down on. I want to chat on defensive line as well. There's another guy that got hurt last year in fall camp that we didn't see, and that's Hunter Zenzen. I think people forget you got him back, Grant. What experience? I know he didn't play, but what does that help for your defensive line to have Hunter back?
Well, I think one thing that he adds is he adds just a little bit of a different size component that maybe we don't have. He's a thicker, stronger guy. We've got a lot of defensive ends that are kind of in that 235 to 240 pound range. And to be able to have somebody that's more in the 250 pound range, just at times in who you're playing, that can be a little bit different. And then on top of it, I think pass rush wise, he adds a different power rush element off the edge that can affect some tackles, to have some guys that have really good speed rushes and then to bring in a fresh guy that's got a really good power rush, I think can change up some things. And people maybe don't realize that. Like something that I probably didn't understand a number of years ago, of the ability to rush people, multiple people, and really give offenses and confuse them. So I'm excited the power component he's going to bring. I'm excited the strength and weight component that he's going to bring. So I think that's going to help us in our physicality. It's going to help us stopping the run. It will be a noticeable impact having him back.
To have the safety valve on the back end with like Cole Wisniewski, how much does that not make things easier for you? But knowing that guy back there figured out what he was doing, he was pretty darn good at safety last year.
Yeah, I mean, shoot, like I think one of the things that now I really believe, and I've got the numbers to prove it on a lot of this stuff, that giving up big plays is the fastest way to lose football games. And truly, I really believe that. And defensively, creating turnovers is the fastest way to win football games, even if you're not as talented as somebody else. So, and that comes down to the back end so much. Mm-hmm. If we can do a great job in the back end and keep people covered and keep the ball in front of us and be knockdown tacklers, we can limit explosive plays. And if people got to drive an entire length of the field against us on an 18-play drive, like, they're not going to get a touchdown. That's so incredibly difficult. People have to get big chunk plays against our defense. So by having him back there to limit those chunk plays, and then you notice that he's just a football player. He had, 9 interceptions, 8 interceptions, had a couple forced fumbles this past year. He accounted for a lot of turnovers and takeaways for us. So having that, I think, is going to, it just continues to feel confidence that you're going to be able to thrive in the back end.
I know you were out in Bismarck at the end of February before spring ball got going. Tell me what that was like to connect with fans. I know Tim has been big on that, to get out around the state. What was that like? And what were the questions you were getting from fans outside of, are you going to beat the Jacks this year? So, stuff like that.
Okay, so one funny about that, the very first question that I got was, how's it being a dad?
Yeah.
So
that's fantastic.
I appreciate that. And that just, to me, that just shows you the character of Bison fans. But a couple kind of overall themes that I felt like really resonated. You got a chance to talk to some parents of current players and their just excitement level for the program. That was number one. I think that was really stuck out to me. And then number two, I think that fans were just like, hey, like, we want to support, we want to be involved. How can we be involved? What can we do? What can we help? And then the third big theme that you heard was like, okay, defensively, like, what do we need to do to play better? And it was really easy to answer that specific question. Is like, we're going to get back to the basics and the fundamentals. We're going to worry less about having perfect play calls and perfect schemes. And we're going to simplify, but we're going to be the masters of tackling and takeaways and those things that are critical to defense. So as we improve our tackling and our fundamentals, you can tell all Bison fans like the production and the play is going to continue to increase, and we're going to have a great year this year. I really believe that.
Polisic still is high, strong as he was that I remember. Is he still that way on the field, even yesterday, or is it a little different?
Well, I think that he is actively taking a role. Like he's told me before, he's like, hey, the head coach that I want to be during practices, I want to be like what Coach Kleiman was and what Coach Bull was, where I sit back and I allow the assistants to go coach, and I want to be involved and do those things. So I already know, like, I'm going to challenge myself and him. Hey, we're doing, first 2 periods of practice tomorrow that we're doing a turnover drill. Coach Polisic, I want you to be involved. I want you and Coach Kleiman to be doing this particular drill while me and Coach Johnson are doing this drill over here. So he's a good football coach that, like, I need to keep him involved because he's got passion. He's got energy. Like, when he's involved, our kids practice and play harder. So I love that about him, and I think that hasn't changed. I think that there's some things that he would tell. He's like, I've grown it. And I don't want to use the word maturity because he's always been mature, but I think that he's grown and changed just like all of us has. Like, if you're not growing and changing, you're not getting any better. So I do think that there's some areas that he would look back and say, you know what, I'm proud of the growth that I've had, and I see things from a different perspective. Right now, I've got a long way to go, but I've already grown a ton. Like, being the coordinator now, it just makes you see things from a different perspective. So I've grown a ton. I'm a better coach right now than I was 4 months ago, and I'm not afraid to admit it. And I know the linebackers are going to continue to improve because I'm growing as a coach as well.
When, before I let you go, when did you officially get sick of spring ball? Was it sophomore year, junior year, senior year? Like, I'm done. I do not want to do this again.
Okay, so that's really funny. Like, I think that's definitely a lot of people feel that way. Like, I think I had a little bit of a different perspective, partly just because I genuinely like to practice. Like, for me, if you just said, okay, what's fun about playing football?
Yeah.
Why'd you like it? I'm like, I loved actually getting to play the game. I love getting to compete. And then I also love doing it with other people. I'm a people person. So I didn't particularly get bored of practice. I think the part where, if you just ask me, I think a lot of older guys get to is you can get bored of maybe the meetings. I know our players love to practice at NDSU. There's times that we got to take care of their bodies because they're veterans and we got to not run them into the ground. We got to keep them healthy. But I know they love being out there. It's the monotony. And that's what I like about the change right now. Like, we're changing some things, and it's making them learn, and it's keeping things fresh. So I think we're not experiencing that like what other programs have in the past that don't have positive change.
You can say just being outside at like 6 a.m., right, on Dakota Field, right? I'm sure that wasn't fun, right?
It was cold on Tuesday. I'm already looking at the weather. I'm already like, you know what? Defensively, it was really good to be outside for a day. I'm already thinking we might need to go inside tomorrow.
It's great to see you. I can't wait to get up to practice. Appreciate the time. We'll talk again soon, all right?
Awesome. Thanks, Don. Appreciate you having me.
There he is, Grant Olson, NDSU defensive coordinator, joining us after day 1 of NDSU spring ball. They're back on the field tomorrow. We'll break here on the Bison Media Zone. We come back, a look ahead to the Bison women's basketball team and when and who they may play in the WNIT, and the spring sports season starting conference play. We're back on the BMZ right after this. Back here on the Bison Media Zone as we wrap things up. This is the quadrant that the Bison women are in for the WNIT. North Dakota State will play the winner of Montana and Boise State. That game is tonight at 8 o'clock in Missoula. The winner of that will play the Bison. And we should know, I would think, later tonight or at the very latest early tomorrow morning when and where that game is. Again, it's not a slam dunk that the Bison will host. I think there's some optimism still that they can host this game, but we won't know until the conclusion of that one. If the Bison are able to win that, then likely a date with the University of Minnesota happening there. So we will know within the next, hopefully, 18 hours where the Bison, when and where that game is happening against either Montana or Boise State in the WNIT. On the spring sports schedule, big weekend here. We mentioned Bison baseball has got Nebraska coming up tonight, then a series with Oral Roberts beginning on Friday. Bison took 2 of 3 against Omaha to start off Summit League play. And the Summit League season begins for Darren Mueller's softball team after spending the first 34 games all across the country, whether it was in the South, whether it was out west, a couple games out east. They'll take on Omaha, doubleheader on Saturday and then 1 game on Sunday. Their supposed home opener is next weekend with St. Thomas. With the way the weather is looking, may not be optimum for that. Thanks for watching this week's edition of the Bison Media Zone. Mike McFeely will join me next week as we recap the first week of spring ball. We'll see what happens with the Bison women's basketball team. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. We'll see you next week on the BMZ here on WDAY Extra.